Nathalie Simper, and this is The Limitless Musician, a podcast by KE Creative. Our team helps modern musicians find modern solutions to building a sustainable music career. Along with my co-host, Dr. Katherine Eminent, we will help you learn what it takes to build a career that enhances your life instead of restricting it by becoming the limitless musician you are meant to be. I got it now.
You got
it? Hey, Limitless Musicianeer. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, it's me, Nathalie, your host, and we have Katherine today again on this episode. We also, in the fur assistant department, have Grim here in the studio, so you might see him napping or lounging around at some point in the episode. Today, we're going to talk about investing. And, by the time this episode is airing, tax season is going to be over. Mm-hmm. And so money is a really big topic on everyone's minds, but a very stressful topic as well for musicians, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's one of the most stressful topics for musicians, I think, because it seems like through all of our whole lives and our upbringing through music school, like you have to take out loans, you have to invest a lot of money into your education, into your instrument, into your supplies. And it just feels like we're just like hemorrhaging money all the time and hoping that that investment will be returned once we graduate.
Mm-hmm. And we're, of course, going to talk about money investment, financial investments, which is a subject that lots of musicians struggle with. And it's kind of like a journey that we have to go through for ourselves. But we're also going to talk about other kinds of investments that you make in yourself and also in your career, not limited to financial. So we're going to talk about finances. We're going to talk about your time and the energy that you invest in building up the career that you want. So let's talk about the definition of investing. Okay. So the technical definition of investment is the outlay of money, usually for income or profit. And that sounds pretty official, doesn't it?
It totally does. It really does. So we invest in a lot of things financially, right? So from the perspective of a musician, you're investing a lot financially into your education. We all know about those pesky student loans. And that's one big thing that when you go to music school, you have to weigh. And I know many musicians are willing to go invest a lot of money into their education because of the prestige of a school or the name, or, they know people who have graduated from there and who have been successful. So if they did it, why shouldn't I be able to do it? And so they're willing to pay $80,000 a year in tuition to go to schools. So I think that, financially, we're really used to hearing the word investment and thinking that if we invest a lot into something that is going to pay off, and hopefully it will pay off, but obviously there's always never a guarantee in that.
Right. And in the classical music industry, there seems to be a disparity between the amount of money that you invest in your career and the output, right? Because an investment is meant to eventually make you a profit. In this case, it's having a music career, one that is successful, that's financially stable, something that enhances your quality of life and the lifestyle that you want to live, rather than, making those decisions for you. And I know, at least in my experience, it took a while for me to feel like I was in a position of, okay, all the money that I've invested in my music degrees, in my instrument, in the traveling to fill up my resume and get experiences from gigs and other jobs. It took a while for that to feel like it was paying out and that I was actually profiting from those financial investments.
Yeah. And it can take a while. And I think that, as you go through the path of determining where to go to school, how much to invest in your education. There's so many factors, and many of them are personal. I just know that when I was 18 years old, like I didn't know like what literally paying back loans for the rest of my life meant and entailed. And so I'm like, yeah, whatever, I'll pay it back later, no problem. But I think that when you're thinking about investments, it is important to look in the long run of what you're going to actually be on the hook for paying back every single month.
Right. The investment is not just about what you're going to get, but also what you're going to have to give in return. For the example of student loans, you get all of these loans so that you can afford the degree. And then once you have the degree, you're going to have to give that money back. You're responsible for that. And I know when I was, thinking about which schools to audition for my bachelor's degree as an 18-year-old, I remember this conversation with my mother where she was like, why don't you just go to a community college like your brother? My brother studied to be a mechanic. Mm-hmm. And so he got an associate's degree, immediately got a job as a mechanic once he graduated. And like he was working, doing what it is he was learning to do. And, I remember thinking like, oh, well, it's about the teacher. It's about the school, not necessarily, about just getting a degree. And I didn't really know what that meant at the time. I was just kind of parroting what I had heard from other music teachers and other professionals that, said it's about the school name. It's about the person that you're studying with. It's not necessarily just getting a music degree. That's right. And then all of a sudden you can get all of this work.
And for me, the word that I heard all the time was building your pedigree, making sure your pedigree was good, like literally where you went to schools and which schools would match well with others. And I think now I'm older. So this was still back when, there was more pressure on names and your pedigree, literally. And there is bias still, I think, for people who go to certain institutions or don't go to certain institutions. And I think we're going to find bias no matter what we do. Like it's impossible to get away from it. But I remember having that conversation of shopping around for schools and which school would fit my pedigree best, would pair best with it. And it was like a big no-no to get 2 degrees from the same school, even though I did that anyway. And so, there's a lot of pressure. So on where you choose to invest and, knowing that you're going to have to invest that back, you have to pay that money back plus some, eventually. And kind of along those lines too, like I know like on one of my posts, like recently on Instagram that someone said that they were having to work a lot of jobs. So they wouldn't have to pay as many student loans. And that this one person's professor was like, yeah, just take out another student loan to purchase your instrument.
Yeah.
And it was really hard for that person, for that musician, because they were working so hard to try to not take out more student loans. But then you never know, like, is this instrument purchase going to be the thing that takes me to the next level or not? And especially when you're in that world every day, it can feel like that is the game changer, and that you should go about taking that loan out and that investment out.
Right. And I think we see that a lot with the people that we coach through Playbook and just other musicians in similar experiences where you get the degree, you've invested those student loans that you have to pay back at some point. But there's this sort of expectation that if you do all of those things, if you take out the loans, if you get the fancy instrument, you go to the right schools, that it will guarantee you a job after graduation. You get that degree in hand and then you're ready to go performing with an orchestra or teaching at a university or doing whatever music related job that you're working toward. And that's not really the case for most musicians, right? Like how many people, have we coached that have taken a break from classical music because they said, well, I graduated with this degree and realized I don't have any work in music and there's no job security. So I went to get a non-music job. And because there was security in there, I stayed there rather than continuing to try to figure it out as a musician.
Yeah, exactly. And plus, as soon as you graduate, those loan payments kick in.
Yeah.
And how in the world are you? I think there's like a 6-month grace period or something. And then how in the world are you supposed to pay them back? So it makes sense to just do something that is not music related that will help you to pay those loans so you don't, default or anything. But that's totally right. And then we also see a lot of resistance to musicians who need to invest more after they graduate to learn these skills so that they can make money doing the thing that they want to do. But it's like and I get it, like by the time you've invested so much into your education and you're so deep into debt, it's hard to justify investing even more because you thought that that's why you went to school. Like, shouldn't you have learned that? But we see that all the time too, where folks have no clue how to market themselves or to even put themselves forward to get gigs, to get students, to make a place for themselves in the music community.
Right, exactly. I know for a lot of musicians, like you said, you make those investments and you don't get the return that you're expecting. And so then you're hesitant to want to put even more money, more energy, more time into something an outcome that you really weren't anticipating. Nobody anticipates going into a 4-year degree and coming out empty handed,
right.
Without a job or without any prospects or some kinds of leads in order to have a job in your career field. Nobody plans for that because that's always like the worst case scenario, right? Mm-hmm. That's the scenario where you feel like you've done something wrong and that you've failed, but really, it's not. There are so many factors that go into that outcome, but because it's it seems to be more and more like the more obvious, more consistent outcome rather than, the outcome where you have a job and everything you're successful, everything is all lined up in a row. You can pay back your loans and you can, pay for, your basic living necessities. It always seems like that's the exception, don't you think?
It is, for sure. The majority of musicians, when they graduate, do not get a job right out of school, do not know how to create their own path in the music community. That is the majority. So if you're listening to this and, you're in this place where either you're about to graduate or you have graduated and you don't know what to do, or you've been milling around for a couple of years trying to figure it out, thinking you're the only one, that you missed something, you're not alone. You're in the majority. That's the majority of people. And there's no shame in it because it's not your fault in a way, because unfortunately our system is not set up to teach the basic skills needed to be a small business owner, which is what every musician is, when you graduate school. So, the majority for sure of musicians face that. And, I think that the music curriculum is evolving, but it's not evolving fast enough. And it is not really focused on project-based learning outside of learning one's instrument really, really well. So if I was your professor, you better believe you would be going out, learning how to figure out how to set up a concert series, how to find sponsors, how to make connections and network in a genuine way, how to leverage social media so that you can get out in front of people and stuff, which is a heck of a lot harder, y'all, than writing essays and taking tests. But that's also going to set you up for success after you graduate, because it's your training wheels. So that's another thing with investment. When you're investing in education, look for programs that are going to help you bridge the gap between school and real life. And not just one entrepreneurship class where you make a one-page website. Find people who have literally done the thing and have set up a curriculum to help their students figure out the thing before they graduate.
Absolutely. And those are a lot of things that you listed are things that, a lot of musicians are having to do, whether to build up an online presence, to become teachers, to learn how to function, as you said, as a business owner, as a true bona fide freelancer, with all of the financial knowledge and business structural, all of that stuff that comes with it. Those are the things that, we kind of assume we're going to get taught in school. And because we don't, it's like, well, then I guess I don't really need that. So you think, okay, I'm getting what I paid for. I'm getting all the things, all the tools, all the skills and experiences that I need so that I'm ready to be able to do this on my own once I graduate. And that's not really the case. I know once I graduated after 2 degrees, I was still afraid of just even calling myself a musician because, and I was afraid to just work as a musician full time. I had, a 9-to-5 job that I worked that was completely unrelated. I was actually working for a student loan servicing company. So I was working for, for the other side, but I learned way more about student loans and my responsibility and how to plan my finances to pay back my loans because of that job. I did not learn that in my music degree. So if you're already out of school and feeling like there are gaps in your knowledge, absolutely. There are so many things that just don't get covered. And that even, as you said, the programs are evolving to include those kinds of things and make those more of a priority. But, not just in the music field, but in general, universities that have a lot of red tape and there are a lot of things that have to go on behind the scenes to update and change and add things to the curricula. So to be able to have courses that are completely up to date with what career musicians are doing now in their careers is difficult. Like I had a friend a while ago who was in school for coding and he was working a job to help pay for school and he was doing coding with them. But he said, everything that we're doing in my job is like way ahead what we're being taught in school. And so everything that I'm learning in school by the time I graduate will be obsolete. And that's kind of what we see in the music world is that, we have those gaps in knowledge and we learn how to play our instruments really, really well. And that's pretty much it. We kind of get handed the old handbook of this is how your professors did it when they were your age. But, even if that was like 10 years ago, things have changed and technology has evolved and all of that stuff. So,
yeah, absolutely. So, there's lots to think about when it comes in terms of investing money. But even with non-music related things, like we love our dogs. So we're going to invest a lot of money in our dogs. I mean, there is literally a column on our household expenses for every month for Barney, for our dog, because he has a lot of health problems these days. But, we're still going to spend the money because that is something that's very meaningful to us. So when you're thinking about investments, they don't always have to be bad. They can jumpstart you and they can provide things in your life that are meaningful to you. Just investing. I know for me, I invested like $2,000 in a coaching program and it made me skip like 20 steps of figuring it out on my own. So and then I was able to invest $10,000 in another coaching program. And then that zoomed me along even further. And I have a doctorate degree and I had to go take out a lot of student loans, but the topics that I learned in those coaching programs really served me in a real world setting because they were being taught by people who were actually doing those things in the real world at that moment. So it's important just to keep your eyes open and your mind open when considering what to invest in next.
Absolutely. And I think a real fear I know that I have had when I am thinking like, okay, I need to find a way to fill this gap in knowledge, or there's a particular skill that I know is going to help me run my private studio or feel really confident as a musician and as a professional, that it's just, there's so much information out there. And so it almost feels easier to just kind of, collect little puzzle pieces of like, oh, watch this free video tutorial here and like download this freebie here. And then I can, sit down and do the work to figure out how it all connects. But usually those free things, like they're going to give you a little nugget, that might get you thinking differently, might kind of get your creative gears in motion. But, unless sometimes you do have to pay, to get that information that, like you said, it's going to save you the time and the energy of trying to figure it out for yourself, where you're going to have someone who is an expert in that particular thing, and they're going to help you skip all of the hemming and hawing. And yes, you still might make mistakes, or you may still have to work to adapt it into how it fits into your career and your current lifestyle situation. But like, it's going to save you a lot of time. And I think that's the element with investments that is missing in consideration when you see that the $2,000 for that coaching program or whatever, that it's like, well, that's a lot of money. Yes, it's a lot of money. I'm not saying just like, oh, you can afford to just, pay for any old thing to really, fill in your gaps of knowledge. But you may be giving that much money, but how much time are you getting back? How much energy are you getting back? And I think that's really like at the heart of what we want to talk about today, is that, you have to trade certain things. And then investing isn't always about the dollar sign that attached to it. It's about the energy that you spend. It's the time that you spend being able to learn these things and to implement them so that you feel like really happy with where your career is, as opposed to always wishing that things were different.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that as you get older as a musician, you realize how much time is meaningful, to have freedom of time, not to be running from thing A to thing B constantly, not to just cobble together 5 different adjunct positions and having to drive around and being exhausted by the time you get home, or running from one creative hat to the next creative hat, and being able to be more free with your time to pursue things that you want and develop sides of yourself that you want to develop.
Yeah, I'm thinking back, like we were literally just talking about this, but I'm thinking back like maybe 7 years ago, like when I was single, I was, already had my degrees. I had finally like gotten rid of my my student loan servicing job and was working full time as a freelancer and a studio owner. And I would drive like 45 minutes to an hour one way, to do work. And then I was constantly driving to different cities for either gigs or students or work. And then coming home to work again, because I would teach students from home as well. And so on a given day of the week, I was, maybe teaching or performing, like actually working maybe 8 hours, but with all the travel adding on top of that, I was having like an 11-hour work days or sometimes 14-hour work days. And that just seemed the norm of like, okay, that's just what's expected because I'm a freelance musician. I don't have like, I don't have a position at a university, or I'm not a core member of a professional orchestra. That's just what I have to do. And now fast forward, now I'm doing like 10 times more things than just like performing and teaching. But I definitely feel like I have more time because, I'm not traveling as much, and I've been able to make a balance with the things that I'm doing so that I don't feel like I'm giving more than I'm getting from my career.
Absolutely. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that when you're an early career musician, you do need to put in a lot of effort, because it is during those times when you learn, first of all, how to do everything, because you don't learn unless you do it. And so, that's, no matter if you're, working with a mentor or a coach or whatever, you're still going to have to invest a lot of time in figuring things out, and also shopping for those experiences, like figuring out actually what you like to do. Where do you want to invest your time? And so as that picture becomes more clear, then I think that's when we're able to drop certain things from our careers that are either costing us too much time or are not paying us as much as what we could make if we had dedicated our time to something else. I know for me, when I was teaching adjunct and I had 3 sections a week that I taught 3 days a week, so I had to teach 9 classes a week, plus grading all the papers, and plus commuting, that I was so tired by the time I got home from doing all that stuff that it wasn't worth the time anymore. I would rather have invested more time into taking a couple more private students, or, working on building out the online stuff. So when I decided to drop that, it freed up so much time, and I was able to make up that money loss in other ways that didn't require so much investment of time. And same thing too, like whenever you're learning a new skill, your time investment is going to be a lot greater at first. So like when I first learned how to design websites, I was sucked into YouTube and the DIY stuff. This is back when Apple had its own, iWeb, if anybody's like that old or remembers that came prepackaged on Macs all the time. Had to figure out how to use that. And now it takes 2 seconds for me to update a website, because I invested that time early in to learn how to do it. And now I get that back. I've got that return on my investment, because I can do it super fast and I can teach other people how to do it.
Exactly. And, once you leave school, it's almost like, you're kind of, maybe it's the expectation of like, well, I know things now. And so, things should be a little bit easier, or maybe not take quite so long. But you're so right that, there are skills that you're going to learn now that, even if you already feel really good about it, like let's say that you feel really confident about managing your finances. Well, your situation is not going to stay the same between now, a year, 5 years from now, like you may have expenses later that you didn't have before, or you may let go of certain expenses, so being able to be on your feet and to be able to balance and adapt with all of that change as your life situation changes and your career changes, like it may take a little bit more effort than it did when you were single or when you were first starting out and things felt a little bit more straightforward.
Yeah, that's right. And, you're never done in life. Like there's always going to be a learning curve no matter what you do. And if things are always going to take more time as you're getting started. When I had my baby, there's no instruction manual, y'all, that comes with you to the baby. Like, holy cow. And I'm a control freak, like a type A control freak. I like to know what's happening when, and schedules and all of that. And, with a baby, there is no schedule, there is no plan. And I just felt like I was just swimming through time. I had no sense of anything. And so that took a solid 6 months to somewhat get used to, and I'm still figuring it out. But with any type of life change, no matter if it's career or personal life, you have to, and it's hard for me to do, but you have to remain flexible, and you have to remain open-minded, and knowing that your time investment is going to pay off. And if it doesn't, then you learn something.
Yeah, I think the open-mindedness is a really important thing to keep in mind for anyone who's, feeling like you're kind of stalled, you're kind of stuck in your current situation. Maybe you feel like you're stuck having to drive long distances for your gigs, or you feel like you're stuck having to to teach 40 students a week when you're like, I barely can handle, 25 or even 15, so if you're feeling stuck, just being open-minded to the fact that investments and time, money, energy can change. It's not a set level that you have to keep in order to continue getting a return, that profit. And that profit is going to look different based on your life situation. Like right now, your profit is being able to have time with your baby and with your family, and to be able to have the time to do your business stuff. For me, a profit is being able to like hang out with Grim and Chewy and Teeth and spend time with my family. So think about the things that are really important to you, not just in your career, but as a human being. What are those things that you need to feel fulfilled and satisfied and happy in your life, to feel like you can still feel the passion for being a musician, as opposed to feeling the obligation to be a musician because that's what your degree says, and because you feel like, well, I've already invested like all this time, all this money into it, so I have to keep going or else I'm a failure.
And that's actually a theory or something. It's called the sunk cost fallacy, where you feel like that you have to keep doing something a certain way because you've invested so much into it. And I totally get that, because I feel that way too. And it's hard to just walk away from something that you've spent so much time in perfecting and doing. So I suggest that instead of thinking of an all or nothing type situation, see what it's like to pivot a little bit. Like just play around with that. Think about how you can change things around. So you're still doing the things, you're still doing what you love to do and what you've invested in, but maybe it doesn't look quite the same. And I know for me, I was teaching 28 students a week. Now I'm teaching 10. Because I'm investing that extra time into my family, to learning my daughter, to being there for her, to enjoying her upbringing instead of always just being on the go, running around. And I'm very lucky because financially I can do that, because I spent so long setting up my life to be in a place where I could have more freedom of time. Now, don't get me wrong. When she's in her little tent playing and kicking, I'm on my computer and we're singing songs, and Five Little Ducks is the hit right now. We're singing songs and all of that. And I'm still doing my stuff because I have the freedom, because I released a lot of that other stuff from my schedule. Because I didn't need to be an adjunct professor for a million years. It was never going to turn into a full-time job, which unfortunately is the case for most adjunct positions these days. And so that was something that, I could release.
Yeah. And I think there's a certain sense of like a freedom that comes from being so invested in your career, in setting it up in a way that really complements your lifestyle, as opposed to, well, I'm investing in this because this is the only thing I've ever done, or this is the only thing I ever feel good at. I know for myself, like, if you're listening for the first time, after I graduated my master's, I took a year off of music, which I call my sabbatical year, where I was soul searching and, decided to quit, classical music and quit playing the flute cold turkey. And I had that kind of all in or nothing mentality then. And as I stepped away, I realized, well, I can still be involved in classical music. I can still have a career in music, but I can't let it define me or be so ingrained in my identity that I don't know who I am without it. So since then, every year I take steps in that direction of how can I have a fulfilling career, but a career that, like, if it went away tomorrow, I am still intact as a person, as a human, that I know, like, obviously it would be like a huge change, but it's something that I know that I can survive, because I don't eat, live, breathe classical music. It is not my lifestyle. It is something that helps feed my lifestyle.
Yeah. And I love that. And unfortunately, I think for many musicians, it's the opposite. They feel like that they have to be tired and use every single ounce of energy they have to get yet another thing on their CV or something that makes them look successful to the outside world or to the music community at large, because they feel like that they have to keep doing those things. And unfortunately, that leads to the burnout. That hustle leads to burnout, and it leads to almost resentment. I think I did all this work and no one's, asking me to do XYZ, even though this is what I was told to do to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that resentment, that bitterness of like, I've done all of this and what do I have to show for it? Or, I'm not appreciated or valued or in the way that, my investments led me to believe, like, if I do XYZ, then I'll get this. So, we've talked about keeping an open mind to what differences you can make in your lifestyle so that you're balancing your financial, your time, and your energy investments in a way that is, more sustainable for you, right? So what are some things that have helped you, maybe like, something even more recently, that has helped you in balancing that time, with being a new mom and still, having your business?
Yeah, there's been a lot of things. I think that I was really nervous at first about keeping my private studio so small. It's down to like 12 students now, and I've never taught that few students in my life. And so I was really nervous about that. And, even though I teach how to build studios for musicians and, and I know that I'm good at it, I know I'm a good teacher, there's still always that thing about like, what if everybody leaves me? And again, that's that control freak factor, I think. So, going into that, trying to fight that, and then that didn't last for super, super, super long at all, thankfully. And now I feel just so much freer because when I go to teach, I am there for them 100%. I'm not trying to catch up with the baby or whatever. She is set up for the rest of the day. For my husband to take care of her, and she's cared for, and I've spent my time with her. And so then I can go down and spend time with my students and invest in them because they were my children and they still are, and I love them dearly. So I don't feel like I'm missing that as much, but just reducing the number of students and doing a really good job with them has really helped. Obviously, having Nathalie on the team, exactly, is another huge support and another huge benefit, because when you're running a business, when you're doing it by yourself, you question stuff all the time. So having someone just to bounce ideas off of, or if I know that I am like sick and I cannot function, or if someone sends us an email that my brain is not comprehending, I can just ask Nathalie, hey, can you look at this and do that? And so then that helps validate that I know what I'm doing. Also gives, the sense of working together and the collaborative experience versus just always being solo all the time. So having good people around you, not just to be friends, but to know how you work and to have a shared vision, and working together to build a shared vision has been really helpful.
Yeah. And I know for me, Alex, my husband was like really instrumental in me applying boundaries into my business, because I mentioned, like, before I met him and before we got married and had to share life, like I just had me to take care of and my bunny Doppler. And so it was so easy to just be grinding all the time, spending all of my time, like having 90% of time spent on my career and my work and 10% on the personal stuff, because I didn't really need a lot lot to maintain myself back then. And so when Alex came into the picture, I realized, oh, like there are so many ways that I just give my time away for nothing, that I don't get anything in return. Not to say that you have to, like, you always have to give something in order to get something, like with the purpose of getting something. But, in your career, you really have to think about how you're trading your time, how you're trading your energy, and how that plays out in your life. So he really just opened my eyes to the fact that I'm like, oh, I'm still trying to spend 90% of my time on my career when my family needs more than 10%. And at that time in my life, I needed more than 10%. And now present day, like, I totally need more than 10% to maintain myself, especially after my ACL reconstruction surgery. Like, that does really, reconsider the balance of, how much I spend, how much time and energy I spend on myself and how much I spend in business related things. So to, like you said, to have people in your corner to bounce ideas off of and to support you in a constructive way, because it's not always just people telling you you're great, like you can do no wrong and anything you do is going to be wonderful, right? Yeah. Like sometimes you need those people to kind of give you a reality check, even if it's a really gentle one, just for you to see like, oh, I'm giving away a lot of my time, or I need to invest smarter so that I can really get my career in a position to where I'm happy, like instead of teaching 40 students a week, maybe you're teaching 20 students a week. But with all that extra time, you can be doing more for your students. Like you have the capacity to maybe do more events and to really make their experience in your studio an enriching experience. Or you can trade that time for yourself to have hobbies, to travel, to do, to do things in another like professional aspect that goes beyond teaching or performing,
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that when thinking about investments and thinking about investing, I think it's important to maybe, put on those glasses every now and then. Like when you're weighing if you should do something or not, think about, okay, what am I hoping to get out of this? If I invest into this, if I invest into this time, if I invest this money, if I invest this energy, what is my hope that I'm going to get out of it? And then once you do it, you see if it worked. And if it worked, keep doing it. And if it didn't work, don't do it anymore. So, there is no crystal ball. There's nothing to tell us if we're going to get it right the first time. So, or the second time or the third time. It's a constant evaluation and a constant, almost risk taking.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also want to point out that these investments aren't always going to pan out like immediately, right? Like you're not going to immediately get what you're looking for. It may take time and it may take more energy. It may be more of a long-term project in order to get you to a place where you're feeling like that investment is paying out. And that's just part of life. It's, you see that and like, not just in your career, but in your personal life. Like, you have a hobby, you're not going to be perfect at it the first time you try it. You're going to have to put a lot of time, maybe invest some money into your equipment and to getting better. Like I know for me, I enjoy crocheting and sewing. And so you've got to have the right materials, right? And it's the same as in your career. You'll spend time deciding what your right materials are to build that career that's going to really enhance your lifestyle, make you feel like, okay, all this work, all of this energy, all of the money that I've invested is paying off in a way that's going to make you feel like, you have more to yourself. You're more than just the identity of a classical musician.
For sure. And I would also say to beware of quick fixes. We love quick fixes. We see those ads on Facebook and Instagram all the time that say, take this program and you'll make $100,000 within 3 months. There's no way to guarantee that. And that's usually just, clickbait. So just know that anything that you choose to invest in, there's no guarantee that it's going to be a quick fix. But if it's something that you believe in and it's something you are ready to learn about and to put into action and try, and you're ready to play the long game, you will get results from it. But don't expect quick fixes to work.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, now that tax season is over,
thank goodness,
and this conversation about investing, I think I've got my money's worth on the financial talk and investing and stuff. So if you guys want to hear anything more about this, or you have questions, feel free to hit us up on Instagram, send us a DM. Katherine is at Katherine Eminent on Instagram, and I'm the Limitless Musician on Instagram. So yeah, maybe next time we'll have a fun topic.
Oh yeah, not money,
not investing. Yeah, which hopefully by the end of this this episode you're feeling a little bit better about investment and not getting triggered when you hear that word.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's all for today's episode on The Limitless Musician. If you liked this episode, follow us on Instagram at The Limitless Musician to tell us what you want to hear next. Remember to subscribe to our newsletter to get exclusive content that won't show up anywhere else by clicking the link in the show notes. Until next time.